I would say that creativity means everything to me. It's really the basis of what I do every day, what I'm interested in, what I look at, what I remember, what drives me to develop new things. If it isn't creatively driven, I simply am not interested. So inspiration for me came from all different directions. My parents were middle class. We're both first generation. My grandparents came from Poland and Russia, Romania, and they wound up in Chicago. My mom had a streak of creativity somewhere that I think had a big impact on me. She was a little bit like Gracie Allen.
He had a lot of hair on the sides of his head, but none on top. So I said, Ma, you must have grown awfully fast when you were a boy. You grew right up through your hair.
And when people say, you know, it'd be all right to talk to Bob, but sometimes he goes off on a tangent and it's a little bit like his version of jazz. Eventually he comes back and a drum roll happens or something. I had a great childhood, but I started to realize that I wasn't able to keep up in school. It appeared always around testing. And so because even if I finished a test, I'd only have answered 50% of the questions, which put me in all remedial classes. So I never remember having a class that didn't have an R after it. Overcoming dyslexia has been a benefit because it gives you the ability to pre-visualize data in a way that is very useful for understanding the most important thing that I learned from it, which is pattern recognition. I went to Arizona State. I graduated from there. I don't remember actually going, but I did study advertising for some reason. I was pretty good at salesmanship, which I think is a really important trait, because if you can't sell something, you can't get anything made. But I was able to convince my father after I had a really big motorcycle crash that I should get a faster motorcycle. And that way, I could get out of the way. I thought that riding in a car was like watching television, and riding a motorcycle, you had to be aware 100% of the time. So like Be Here Now is all based on being present. My brother and sister are both very creative, and so we had a creative family. I consider myself a designer more than anything else, because I try to take complicated themes and make them understandable. I became early on interested in architecture and design. Big influence was Charles Eames, Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe. And my brother started to do motion graphics, and that's when we got together. We bought a very big camera, wound up moving to New York and starting a company with my brother. We named the company R with a / GA, and created a square that was related to the Bauhaus. There was both of our influences, but it became our Greenberg Associates. I was the cameraman and producer and salesperson, and he was the creative, and he would also put the art together to shoot. And then I realized that I could computerize the camera. because I had experience with DEC Equipment, Digital Equipment Corporation, up in Canada, computerizing some manufacturing processes very early on. So I wound up computerizing everything. The entire production process for doing motion graphics, editing, motion control, cameras, aerial image projectors, and so forth. And we created a sizable organization on Madison Avenue and 38th Street. And eventually, we moved to Hell's Kitchen. It was an homage to the Bauhaus. I still am driven by two very important parts of the Bauhaus. The sum is greater than the individual parts, which is collaboration, and also the whole idea that less is more, which is about simplification and design. We would be the company that agencies would go to try and fix things that weren't shot the right way. And then we became able to supervise shoots. And then we said, well, the hell with that, we'll direct it ourselves. So at least it would be directed properly so that we could do good seamless visual effects. And we started to mix in technology, of course, computers, and RGA grew into a fairly sizable company of about 200, between 200 and 250 people when we moved to Los Angeles as well and created RGA LA. We worked on about 400 feature films. Like Zelig was a very important one. We got opportunities to work on Superman. Alien, all that jazz, and Predator, Die Hard. Terminator 3 had just come out. Terminator 3 wouldn't have been able to have been made except that we created the digital negative. Kodak created the scan-in. We created the scan-out in order to do digital computer graphics effects like in Terminator and have it go to a 65 or VistaVision negative. I was very influenced by Bob Dylan because he constantly reinvented himself. That influenced me a lot. How do you create new ways to tell stories? How do you create new ways and new vocabularies and new types of images? And I saw in the first version of what I did to take us from motion graphics, visual effects company, and everything that we did in the first 9 years to come to the second 9 years, which was interactive, the web, mobile and social. The vision of the company was that great work that I loved in advertising and otherwise was being done with print and with photography. I knew that the real way that I could get into advertising was through my understanding of interactive advertising. And we were successful at putting together some of the best designers who could think in motion. I had a team that I could bounce things off of. Chloe Gottlieb, Nick Law, Barry Waxman, Chris Colburn, Stephen Plumley, Sean Lyons, are people who actually understood how to influence and do a singular vision in a very collaborative medium, which we had to do. And you have to keep repeating that in order to build something the way that I was interested in doing it. And so I would create a place where it would be the most interesting place for a person to work. So an interactive designer, or ID, or XD, is the interface into everything. So it's how you understand through it how to navigate a site, like a huge one like IBM.com that we did, or Samsung.com, or Nike.com. They are so complicated, but I was sure that physical architecture, which I got to understand, is exactly the same thing as a website. So one is information architecture, and one is physical architecture. So we rarely at RGA today do anything without it being 2, 3, 5, 8 offices working together so seamlessly that you wouldn't know you're working with another office. A lot of it was for Nike. We got a lot from that relationship. We worked on Nike.com. We worked on Nike Plus, which is a complicated, integrated, systematic way for Nike to put a lot of things together. We worked on the Fuel Band, which was a product and service that was way ahead of its time. We worked on the way in which you could customize with Nike ID. Creativity and innovation take something that I think I haven't heard people talk about so much, and that's risk. You cannot be risk adverse in the business of RGA. I've come along a lot of different paths to wind up where I am now. I found people who could inspire me with just how difficult it was to build their businesses and their careers, integrating and diversifying what they're doing, and inventing a lot of it as they go along. You know, people like Kandinsky, Ivan Shemaev, got to know Sal Bass quite well. Steve Frankfurt, who came out of being the president of Y&R, he showed me how to put together a team, which is common in advertising, and how the collaboration should work. My wife has been a huge influence. She grew up in New York, and her parents never spoke English. She's Chinese and is a painter and studied architecture, design, and so forth. So she's been a great influence and a great partner in all the things we do together. I don't think that you could do some of the things that I'm doing in others if you're not emotional. And I don't think that you'd be good at doing things like what we have to do in art and science if you're able to deal with not just the emotion, but also the enthusiasm. The only way people will leave you alone is if you can somehow figure out how to make business work as well as the art and the creativity and the design and the innovation of which I'm so interested. And this next 9 years will be about distributed creativity and about OS 2.0, which is all the software that would control that, and about the future workspace, like whiteboarding and pitch rooms and how people work, and the next generation of quiet, so acoustics and distribution of ideas and all the types of things that we could do that is because we're one of the world's most collaborative, integrative, distributed, creatively driven companies. And we'll take that to the next 9 years.